A new year of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, dawns this weekend in Northern California wine country. Overnight rains have resumed this morning and left Sonoma Raceway damp and treacherous, but it's done nothing to dampen the enthusiasm for the season ahead. A full 20 GT3 cars have assembled on the pit lane, and it's just about time to go qualifying to set the grid for the first two races of the year. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Marine. Amanda Busick is patrolling a wet pit lane, and it is a pleasure to once again have Calvin Fish alongside in the broadcast booth. Calvin, so much excitement ahead of a new season. The car counts across the board in SRO America are up, but perhaps in no series do you see that growth more than here in GT World Challenge America?
Yeah, just massive momentum, Ryan, since the last couple of years. Getting through the pandemic, of course, had an effect on our grids, but this year looks spectacular. 20 cars in the field across the three classes, and you expect curveballs in the season, but you don't expect it to get the ball rolling here today. Look at the weather now, pouring down with rain. There was some consternation there along the pit lane, but it looks like with the delay in the action here this morning, everyone has finally got wet weather tires on their cars and trying to get around this treacherous racetrack as efficiently as possible.
All right, well, thanks for that, Calvin. And as we said earlier, Amanda is down in the pit lane braving the weather. Amanda, good morning. This is not what we expected when we flew out to California.
No, this is not what we expected flying out to California. The teams did not expect this as easy. Where's the sunshine of California? But as mentioned, 20 cars will take to their first qualifying effort here as we kick off this new 2022 season. I was talking to Will Turner over with the BMW team, and I asked, well, what benefit or who can find efficiency in these conditions? And he said none other than maybe the local teams, and that would be the guys of K-Pax. Not only is one car returning to defend the title, one will take to that Pro-Am category with 15 entries here this weekend. Qualifying is underway, gentlemen.
Great to hear the roar of the race engines once again as we get the season started in dismal conditions. We had a TC America powered by Skid Barber Racing School qualifying session immediately preceding what you're seeing right now, and that ended abruptly with a car in the barriers. That's why we're a bit delayed getting started. There was a barrier repair required. So that is a nice reminder to all of these drivers, Calvin, about to head out onto the racetrack, about the perils of driving in the rain around Sonoma.
Yeah, and I think because of that, you know, there's obviously the consideration of if this session gets shortened, you want to get out there and get a lap time set. Otherwise, if we don't get the minimum green flag time delivered, we'll go by practice 2 session times from yesterday. But if we do get enough time on these opening laps, if the rain is coming down, the racetrack may be in the best shape it's going to be seen during this qualifying session. So you saw the 2 K-Pax entries blasting out of pit lane. They want to get down a nice hot lap here in the early going.
There was rain during the testing session that preceded this weekend on Thursday, and a number of teams and drivers did spend some time out there. Others cut that running short, not necessarily thinking that rain was in the forecast for this weekend, but clearly those that had some experience, got the experience going out and around this track in the rain, they might have the advantage here in Q1.
Certainly, and you always try and factor in on what's the gain in terms of getting some track time on a Thursday with those atrocious conditions that they saw. Well, this was the threat that was here for Saturday. They didn't think it was going to be around for race time in the afternoon, but certainly in this qualifying session, as we're on board there with Jordan Pepper aboard the #1 car.
It's the reigning champion, Jordan Pepper. He and Andrea Caldarelli back to defend their title in the pro class. You can see them seeking out the grip around this track. I spoke earlier in the weekend with Kenton Cook, an outstanding driver in Pirelli GT4 America, racing this year in the GT4 European Series as well. And he said this track, because of the age of the surface, online, on the normal racing line, it is very, very slick. But if you do the long shot around some of these corners, that's where the grip can be found. He compared it in some respects to Mid-Ohio, another track that's very famous for that, but the difference is you can see the surface difference in Mid-Ohio. There's that sealer, those patches. Here, you can't do it visually. You have to go and experience it, and that's exactly what Jordan Pepper is trying to do. And you can see he has his hands full, that Lamborghini twitching in these wet conditions.
Yeah, he's pushing really hard right now. You can see he's gapped his teammate Misha Goikberg, who's aboard the Pro-Am racing entry, the #3 K-Pax, the bright green machine, by quite a bit here on this lap. So he's got a good one going. There you can see him kind of running the cushion. All you're looking for is grip. What you'd like to hear is all of those marbles hitting those inner fenders. That means you're offline and you're getting the grip versus that very polished lawn surface that you're talking about on the racing line.
It's the rim shot we were talking about around turn number 6, that long duration left-handed corner. Now the hairpin, one of 2 hairpins at this Sonoma Raceway circuit. Amazing track, Calvin. Challenging and low grip in the dry. Imagine driving it in the wet. Did you ever drive here in the rain?
I did not. I didn't know it rained in California, so certainly a big surprise here. See that little stripe there? I think it's something to do with the drainage that they put in there, so they're trying to stay off that. It's very different talking to the drivers in terms of the grip level in the dry coming down there. So Jordan's well inside of that, kind of running the middle of the road for his braking points. And then it's really just exploring. So he would have got a ton of laps here. They did some testing here as well. Home track for K-Pax, so they should know this circuit. They'll also know if they were able to do any last-minute tweaks to the suspension settings, but they arrived anticipating a dry racetrack, so you would think the car's basic setup, the main setup of the race car, was tuned in for perfectly dry conditions. So it's all about throwing the wet weather Pirelli tires on it, maybe softening the car up a little bit, and just letting the driver deal with it.
And the South African lays down the gauntlet early, a 151.45, and you can see the 3 purple slash marks there at the top of the screen. That indicates that in each of the 3 sectors around this 12-turn circuit, he had the fastest sector time. Still very early stages. This is qualifying session 1. We should reiterate the fact that there will be 2 qualifying sessions back-to-back. This one here will set the grid for race 1 of the weekend later on today. Meanwhile, the co-drivers will hop in when this session concludes, and that qualifying session, also 15 minutes in length, will set the grid for race 2 tomorrow.
You talk about how treacherous this racetrack is in these conditions, Ryan, but just looking at it visually, Pepper's car is hooked up. I mean, he is really able to be super aggressive, really asking a lot from that race car, and certainly he's on top of the wheel, and he's probably got all the electronics aids dialed up to try and assist him when it does get a little bit out of shape. But nonetheless, his car looks really impressive in terms of how aggressive and how forceful he can be through these corners in these conditions.
You know, Jordan likes these mixed conditions or the wet conditions. We saw him in the Indy 8 Hour a couple of years ago in that K-Pax Bentley at the time on dry tires in the rain, doing some remarkable things. And now, right, he's got 9.3 seconds over Russell Ward in the second fastest car. So right out of the gate, he's got the confidence to go and attack.
He's going big time. And the one thing that you can do, we talk about tire temperature in the dry. It works the same in the rain. So if you tiptoe around this racetrack for a couple of laps, just trying to feel it out, all that tire temperature that's been generated in those ovens and in the tire blankets prior to the tires going on the car will go down. And suddenly it makes it really hard to get those tires back into the sweet spot. You saw Jordan Pepper go out and immediately get aggressive, keep the energy in the tires, and that can really explode in terms of the lap time, not the tire literally, but the lap times can explode in terms of the performance that will give you.
On board here with George KURTZ, the racing this weekend in Sonoma, presented by CrowdStrike. That's the CrowdStrike onboard, one of 3 onboard cameras that we will be bringing to you in our coverage here this year. A great addition. Hope you enjoy those pictures, and it gives you an idea of the visibility that George is dealing with. Right now, 7th quickest, but on a good lap here. His first 2 sectors are his personal bests. And now coming through the hairpin here, 3rd in Pro-Am, as you point out, Calvin.
Just trying to get the power down, and suddenly these corners like this one, which are easily flat, you just got to really be careful here. I find this corner really tricky, kind of loaded uphill. Different ways of approaching it, watching down in that corner yesterday, how the drivers tackle that corner. Some run a very wide line, but then you've got a lot of transition to get back up to set up for turn 2, up and over that hill.
A look at the A, of course, of Ferrari, the reigning champions in the AM class, back to defend their title as well. JC Sada driving the white Ferrari at the moment, and Conrad Grunwald will be qualifying in session 2. Sada right now 18th quickest overall, 2nd in the AM class. Onofrio Triarsi with a great lap earlier in the other AM class entry this weekend. He just turned in a faster one, actually, and jumped up to 6th overall for the Triarsi Competizione team. That's a look at that beautiful race car.
Yeah, the 23 car that you can see predominantly red and a lot of white on that car. The sister car, the 13 car, a lot more black on that machine. So easily identifiable. Great to see this team. They've really loaded up this year. 2-car effort. Dipped their toe in the water last year. Got Ryan Dial on board, one of their machines. So a lot of experience there and some great engineering in their camp as well. Hey, we're looking at Michael Dinan. This is a team that's tested here. The Turner Motorsports team have as much track time with this brand new BMW M4 as anyone has, just coming off a race at Long Beach last weekend with Robbie Foley and Bill Aublin. Aublin and Foley split here in this camp though. Foley remains with the Turner Motorsport Group, and Aublin aboard the Bimmer World number 94 car, which are making their GT3 debut this weekend, he and Chandler Hull.
Michael Dinan, who's driving at the moment, he has some seat time in this car too. He raced in the 24 Hours of Daytona, had a good run going in Sebring. I think they got caught out by a drive time issue or something along those lines and didn't get the result that they were hoping for, but Michael telling me he felt like they had the pace for a podium there, and now taking that experience into his first weekend in this M4 in SRO competition, and you can see those white gloves flashing through the windshield. He's got his hands full, pushing for all he's worth right now, second quickest.
Yeah, he's done a nice job there, but you can see his fastest lap time is about 5.5 seconds off Pepper's time. So Pepper is just at immense pace in these conditions, so he's really got the hammer down. I'm not sure with nearly 6 minutes left if anyone's going to approach that time. So for Pepper, he's got to wait and see what the team is telling him in terms of whether he needs to stay out there and keep pushing. Fortunately, the rain or the drizzle is continuing, so not like this racetrack is drying out and you're going to lose the efficiency of the treaded rubber blocks on those Pirelli P0 wet tires.
And the tires are a topic of discussion this weekend because Pirelli has unveiled new tires, both dry and wets. And so one of the thought processes about going out and practicing some in the wet earlier in the weekend or in that test session has been to get a little bit of data on these new wet tires.
And they are different. They are very different. So particularly in the dry, now we see the 9 car off.
ZIAD GHANDOUR currently 9th in Pro-Am, 13th overall. That is the TR3 racing car. He'll have at his disposal throughout the year. Russell Ward across the line. That is the second placed car overall and now second in the pro class, but still 4.5 seconds off of Jordan Pepper's time.
Yeah, Pepper got down to those times very, very quickly. So obviously, oh, that's under braking there for turn 3. Just loses the rear end. Typically, in wet conditions, you're winding the brake bias towards the rear because the fronts will lock up very easily. So you're taking a lot of that braking force to the rear of the car, and I'm not sure if he just there's too much rear brake in the car, but certainly lost it very quickly there under braking, and you're using a little bit more braking force than you typically would in the dry, of course, as well. Got to be gentler with that. You're getting on the brakes earlier. Got to be really gentle with that brake application.
Looks like ZIAD was able to get that car out of the grass and the mud. You see him on track there right ahead of Michael Dinan, who has slipped to 3rd, but fastest in Pro-Am. And we should note that last year, Foley and Dinan, they ran in the pro class. This year, they will be a Pro-Am entry with that new race car. This is Misha Goikberg, who will be competing in the Pro-Am ranks as well. Canadian driver with a lot of experience, but jumping over to join the K-Pax team here this year.
Yeah, he knows this platform, this Lamborghini Huracan well, though. Ran with the Grasser racing team in another championship last year, so it shouldn't be a big transition for him in terms of adapting. He's got to get used to the Pirelli tire, of course. Misha is one of those guys who has a lot of speed, and I think under the guidance of the K-Pax organization, and he's got a great teammate. I mean, Giacomo Altoe has really shown blazing speed in his initial North American races here, and I think he's got everyone's attention in that Lamborghini factory camp in terms of who may be the top dog. It's going to be interesting to see the #1 team looking over their shoulders at times and what sort of times he's able to put down in the 3 car.
This is another one of the onboards that we have for you, the BMW M onboard. Samantha Tan, team owner, team driver, ST Racing, who brought BMW the first win for this new M4 in global competition at Mugello in a 24-hour series race just a few weeks ago. She's been busy with this new platform and has about as much experience behind the wheel of one of these cars doing several long-distance races as just about anybody.
Yeah, now they've focused their attention on North America for the remainder of this season. Their goal is to go to Le Mans as early as maybe 2024 when the GTE classes over there, switched to this GT3 platform. So there's a big 5-year plan ahead. Nick Johnson is a kind of mentor and driver coach, and since he's doing a really good job, has shown a lot more speed. The consistency is going to be the key, just performing at that level on a regular basis.
That's that quick chicane that leads then to this turn 10, and then the run down to the hairpin. Probably the best passing zone, safe to say, around this track?
Yes, for sure, but there's not a lot of grip down there, so if you make that big move down to the inside, it's keeping it tight enough where someone's just not going to whip back underneath you, but we should certainly see some action here in the race today. Good news is we're kept at green for this whole session, so this session will count towards the grid this afternoon.
Amanda reporting to us that the rain has lessened or even stopped in the pit lane, and maybe the track's drying out a little bit. Look at Jordan Pepper. Purple sector 1, purple sector 2. Here he comes, finding some traffic on this final run to the start-finish line. Can he go quicker still? We'll find out very soon as he comes around the hairpin. Now that left-handed bend to the start-finish line with just over 1 minute left here in this session.
Yeah, big one. 48.7. It's about a second and a half quicker than he had done before. Now he has that gap up about 4.5 seconds over the rest of the field. Just tremendous performance, really a testimony to his skills behind the wheel.
Well, they came out last year here at Sonoma. This is the home track for K-Pax Racing. They were switching to the Lamborghini after several years with the Bentley and immediately announced their intentions. And the whole season went basically to that form where K-Pax dominated in the pro ranks, and this car in particular with this lineup of Pepper and Andrea Caldarelli, who we'll see shortly in Q2. They proved to be nearly unbeatable over the course of the year.
Yeah, super strong driver pairing with a great team, great car, of course, but you're not going to see this sort of delta with his teammate in the next session, because right now we're comparing Pepper's times against all of the AMs. We've only got 3 pro cars in the field, so the majority of this delta that we're seeing is up against the AM drivers who will start race 1 here this weekend, then you flip-flop across. Obviously in the pro cars you can select either of your drivers to qualify and start race 1 and vice versa for race 2.
First drivers taking the checkered flag. ASHTON Harrison for the Racers Edge team. Great to see that car on track. They had a small fire in practice yesterday that caused her to stop, and the team had some work to do overnight to make sure that car was ready to go. But indeed it was, and right now she finds herself 9th overall. This is the quickest AM class car, and Onofrio Triarsi at the moment driving, and he has personal best in the first 2 sectors. How does sector 3 look?
Nice.
Indeed.
Everyone was finding time there at the end, so Amanda's reported that the rain has stopped, so this racetrack will be drying here, so there could be some last lap flyers.
Well, let's give a call to Stephen AGHAKANI. We've not seen the young man just yet, but he just had a good lap that bumped him to 2nd momentarily. Russell Ward just went faster though and demoted him back down to 3rd. Now Goikberg quicker, he's up to 3rd and bumps AGHAKANI down to 4th. In fact, now to 5th as DINAN puts in a flyer, and he's now on the provisional Pro-Am pole. AGHAKANI crosses the line, improves somewhat, jumps back ahead of Goikberg, and is 4th quickest overall and the 3rd fastest of the pro class cars, and it is very tight there behind Pepper. It really bunches up quite a bit.
It really does, and just to put in perspective, Pepper's fast lap so far is 148.7. Yesterday we saw laps in the 136 range in the dry, so that's a 12-second delta. Typically when you get about 10 seconds, that's the crossover period when maybe slicks would work, but looking at that racetrack, the amount of water that's coming up here, I think it's still wet weather tires for this Group 2 session.
Chandler Hole across the line, and he improves, jumps up to 6th quickest.
Oh, that's an awesome run for him, because for this young man, had a big testing incident a couple of weeks ago with their primary chassis, had to switch to a car that only arrived in the States shortly thereafter, so no testing in this car, and to go out there in these conditions, put together a good lap and a clean session, that'll give him a big boost in confidence.
Looks like all the drivers have taken the checkered flag, so provisional results from qualifying session 1. Jordan Pepper, a 148.7, 3.5 seconds clear of Russell Ward in 2nd. Michael Dinan on the pole position for the Pro-Am class. He's got the Pro Class car of AGHAKANI right behind him, and on down the line you go. Fastest AM was Onofrio Triarsi. Great qualifying effort for him to start top 10 overall. He is 9th the other AM-class car, JC Sada, down in 14th.
Some really impressive performance. We just talked about Chandler Hull doing a nice job there, but I think Ashton Harrison there, really nice job. Just got pitted by Erin Vogel. So we've got 3 female drivers in this field this weekend, so Erin's leading the charge so far, but all 3 of them did a really solid job there. Erin switching to the Acura NSX chassis run with real-time. Great to see real-time racing back in this series, over 100 victories over their career in World Challenge competition, so great to see those guys back here.
It's been a few years, but the last time we saw them, they were incredibly successful. Dane Cameron was part of that driver lineup, and they won a bunch of races. They were a Pro-Am entry, and they were winning some races overall from time to time.
Yeah, they won here in their class and had a runner-up finish. So here we see Jordan Pepper now giving Andrea some quick info about the racetrack before he climbs aboard.
How important is that? We talk about it all the time, but in conditions like these.
Never more so. And there you see Andrea just trying to get his boots wiped off. You don't want those boots slipping around when you're in the heavy braking zone. So he's got a ton of experience, though. A lot of these European drivers will certainly excel in these conditions.
Taking a look at the track conditions as the rain seems to have cleared off. Maybe we can hear about those track conditions with Jordan Pepper, who's standing by with Amanda.
Well, for race number 1 here at Sonoma, presented by CrowdStrike, Jordan Pepper will start on the pole to kick off this season. You were just talking to your teammate, Andrea Caldarelli. You were talking to Giacomo to prepare him as well. Why do these conditions play into your favor so well?
I love the rain. I don't know why. Coming from a country where it never rains in South Africa, I just enjoy, like, where you have to go search for grip. I enjoy those types of sessions where last minute, like panic, we're throwing the wets on, guessing the tire pressures, going out there, discovering the track, and yeah, it's just so much fun. And like, the team gave me an incredible car. You know, I felt like we could be up to speed so quickly, and I had the confidence underneath me. We set a lap early on, and then I just burnt some fuel, and then at the end I did a lap. Caught a bit of traffic, but it was still good enough for the pole, and yeah, super happy. So gave Andrea some tips, Giacomo as well. They're obviously Pro-Am, we Pro, so we're not fighting directly against each other this year. So it'll be good to see both K-Pax, Lamborghinis and Q2 also be up there.
Well, there's no secret. You've probably seen a lot of rain at Kyalami growing up. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah.
Amanda would know. She was there for the Kyalami 9 hours, the last leg of the 2021 Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli season that actually ended in 2022 because of the wacky world we're living in at the moment. And yeah, that place is known for a downpour or two.
Certainly. But I think a key factor from that little interview there was the fact that Jordan was now willing to share information with the teammate in the sister car as well as his own teammate aboard this number 1.
Well, we speculated last year that there might be a little rivalry inside the K-Pax camp when they were running 2 pro-class cars, and as the frustration mounted for the sister car throughout the course of the year, I think we saw some of that play out. But yeah, it does make it a little bit different now when you look at the sister car as less competition and more truly a team effort.
Yes. However, it's not to say that ALTO cannot out-qualify Caldarelli in this session and sit in front of him on the grid. They don't sort of stack the pros up in front of the Pro-Am combination. So this will be some session right now. With all of the pros on board, CU has the upper hand now in these conditions. I don't think we're going to see a gap of 3 or 4 seconds like we saw in that first session.
I think you're onto something there. And let's talk about the conditions, because in Q1 it was pretty much constant rain, and it was drying out towards the end. We saw the times get faster. The rain has stopped, the sun has come out. That means there is going to be a ton of track evolution here in Q2.
Yeah, and that's a tricky one, because you can get to the point, okay, you'd think, well, as the track dries, it's going to get quicker, but then you're going to get to the point where these tires are just going to overheat and become inefficient. So there's that crossover point. You got to get out there, set a lap time. There's always a chance of a red, so you got to put some times on the board, but you can't afford to just burn those tires off. Jordan Pepper said, I burned some fuel off and I was able to go quicker at the end, but then are those wet weather tires going to hold up if there is really a dry line develop here in these next 15 minutes?
I think the challenge of racing or driving in the rain is clear, but it's almost more challenging in drying conditions because the track is going to change so much one lap to the next. The same corner could be totally different.
It does, and that's what it's all about. As Jordan said, he excels in conditions like that, or enjoys conditions like that, and in terms of feeling the grip. There you see Robbie Foley coming up over the top of that crest of the hill in turn 3. And I've always found, Ryan, from a driver's perspective, any track that has a ton of elevation change, so much harder to really get the last ounce out of it. You're not seeing the corner, you're just committing to your sight line rather than seeing the exit of a corner. So track experience around here really pays dividends.
Robbie Foley now behind the wheel of the Turner BMW. His co-driver Michael Dinan was just out on track, and I believe Amanda has found him.
And he'll start from the pole in the Pro-Am position in race number 1 here in Sonoma. And Michael, when you take this BMW M4 to the track here for the first race of the SRO America season, how is she breaking in for this debut race?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
How are you breaking in the car for this first weekend here in SRO America?
You know, it's our first time running it on the Pirellis, but we've had success here in the past and previous years in this championship. So the whole team's done a great job setting up the car. We're happy with how it feels, and put it on the pole. It's definitely a good way to start the weekend off.
It started raining no more than 5 minutes ahead of that qualifying session. How did your approach change to how you're going to track this racetrack?
Yeah, we thought it was going to be dry, but Thursday it was wet here. We actually didn't run. There was a shortage of rain tires, and it was my first time out here in this new car in the wet, but just took it slowly, made sure to be careful, and slowly progressed to it. So happy with the result.
Nice work.
Young driver who has been on the fast track to success, and he has made huge strides. It seems like each and every year. Had a difficult year, I think it's safe to say, in 2019, running in Pirelli GT4 America. Made the step, though, the next year and won both the Sprint and Sprint X titles, amassed just gobs of wins. I think it was 17 wins across the 2 championships in 2020. Then made the jump to GT3 last year. They won a race, 6 podiums, including one here in Sonoma.
Yeah, and I think when you come off such a successful season, you expect to win. But it was a big step up to that GT3 level, and I think you then have to kind of temper your expectations. You can't expect to go out in the pro class against guys like Pepper Caldarelli and the rest of the gang that are out there running in that pro class last year and expect to win on speed. So, but he really kept his head together. I think he's got an awesome teammate in Robbie Foley, just in terms of putting it all in perspective and setting realistic targets rather than things that are going to make you frustrated.
We talk about how in the Pro-Am class now in Q2, it's the pros that take over the qualifying duties. And well, last year we saw that led to some really interesting starting grids, because the pros in the Pro-Am lineups, especially for so many of these teams that operate at an extremely high level, they can go toe-to-toe with the pros in the all-pro lineups and surpass them from time to time. And in fact, more often than not, this is one I think all year long we're going to be looking at. GIACOMO ALTO in the sister K-Pax racing car that Misha Goikberg qualified for Q1 a moment ago.
Yeah, really nice young man, and comes from a family that have been brought up around racing. They actually own a Circa Ada over in Italy as well. So lives and breathes it all of his life, and just really embraced coming here to North America. Loves the vibe, loves the circuits. A lot of the times last year he was running circuits for the very first time, but with the aid of simulators these days, it certainly shortens that learning process a little bit. But he is a young man that has really got the attention of the Lamborghini factory, and they believe he's one of the fastest men they have on their squad.
And they had him shake down these 2 K-Pax cars that were sent back to Italy in the off-season just to make sure everything was copacetic. And he was the one tasked by the Lamborghini factory to do that testing. He goes to P2, but less than a 1/10 of a second off of his teammate Caldarelli.
And just a 10th back of that was Mario FARNBACHER. We saw FARNBACHER get up on the wheel early in that number 93, that red Acura NSX. We saw him cut inside Robbie Foley coming off the carousel there on the opening lap. But Robbie, again, like Michael Dinan, wouldn't have had wet laps here on Thursday like the majority of these competitors out here, so he's probably just feeling his way around in these early laps. This is going to be a fascinating combination. Jan Halen and Charlie Luck coming off championships last year in their respective classes, and Jan Halen at the age of 40 plus is just in the prime of his career. He's one of the fastest Porsche drivers out there now on the global stage, won the Porsche Cup last year. He's got a very busy season running in multiple championships. He's going to run 2 championships here in North America. He's going to run in the World Endurance Championship as well with Fred Portad, his teammate from last year. So expect great things once again.
I don't think calling it a career renaissance would be hyperbole. I mean, there were some down periods for Jan where after his IndyCar career kind of fizzled out and he had some sporadic drives, but what Wright has been able to give to him has been remarkable. The opportunities he's been given, and like you said, the Porsche Cup last year, and this time paired with his son-in-law, Charlie Luck. That became official back in November, who won the overall championship in GT America last year and now makes the step. Here's Mario Farnbacher in that Racer's Edge Acura NSX, and he goes to P2, splitting the two K-Pax Lamborghinis.
Yeah, this is going to be a great battle here. Hopefully we keep green flag racing, because I think this is going to go right down to the wire with Mario trying to get in amongst those two Lamborghinis from the K-Pax squad.
A lot of people think of a car like this, the Porsche, as the ultimate platform for the rain, but that NSX, through various evolutions, we're now into the second Evo for the NSX GT3, has proven to be extremely competent in the wet.
It's always been quick in the wet. Right from the get-go, when they struggled to get it to work in the dry, you put it in the wet. I know the early endurance races, it was very, very strong. So it's got that inherent ability to excel in these conditions. But you'd have to think a Belgian driver who's probably got his fair share of laps at the Spa 24 over the years is going to excel in these conditions as well. And I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and he's hoping to be back at Spa this year, working on a deal there.
That's great to hear. He's got a good lap going. You see the running clock there comparing sector time, sector 1, sector 2. Pole speed, a 150 flat, essentially. This is that final sprint to the start-finish line, and what does Jan Haylen do? A 150.482 that jumps him up to 4th and 3rd in the Pro-Am ranks.
Yeah, and only 4/10 off the pole, so it's very tight there between the two K-Pax Lamborghini. Farnbacher aboard the Acura NSX, and then Jan Haylen joining the mix, but it's chopping and changing quickly. Cooper's up there in the 5th position overall. Dirk Mueller, I haven't talked about him yet. He's joined the DXDT operation with David Askew this year in the 63 machine. Foley has dropped down to 8th right now, but he's on a decent lap at the moment.
Farnbacher as well, personal best in each of the first 2 sectors. The bar was just moved again by Caldarelli, it looks like. But here comes Farnbacher across the line. What does he do? A 149.495. That has him second quick, a 1/10 of a second off of Caldarelli. That's his team, the Racer's Edge team. John Meraki in the background. His co-driver Ashton Harrison in the middle of the screen. To the AM class. This is Conrad Brunwald. JC Sada qualified this car in Q1 for AF Corsa. Conrad's been a busy guy running an Asian Le Mans earlier this year. And has seen his star rise a little bit, courtesy of some of the impressive drives he put in running amongst the pros in an AM entry last year in GT World Challenge America.
Yeah, he's the real deal, and let's not forget he has a lot of drifting experience over the years as well, so you've got to feel he'll be totally at home in these conditions, not afraid to let the tail hang out a little bit through some of these tight and twisty corners. This is turn 3, up and over the hill. And when you're low in the car, you just cannot see the road there. It's like blind coming up over that crest. And in these conditions, you're not on the throttle much there, and then you can see trying to get the power down. How much interrupt do you have? You have this TC control, traction control that you can ramp up, but that can take away too much power sometimes. So how comfortable are you just making it work with your right foot rather than just letting the electronics take over?
A look here at another one of those Acura NSX GT3 Evo 22s. Oh, off the track. That's Michele Beretta. Yes, the young Lamborghini ace. He's teaming up with ZIAD GHANDOUR. They didn't even on track twice.
Yeah, they didn't even meet each other until the test day here on Thursday. So it was a program that came late together. I think ZIAD was thinking maybe Altoe was available, but he confirmed his program relatively late with TR3, and by that stage Altoe had been committed to the K-Pax organization for the year.
Bill Auberlin in the Bimmer World BMW. Great to see Bimmer World longtime GT4 and touring car competitors make the step up to GT3. So many of these new BMW M4 GT3s are in the field and well represented in Sonoma.
Yeah, and I think the chassis number 22 off the initial batch was the car that Chandler Hull and Bill Auberlin are running here this weekend. I think the initial batch is 40 cars, so they're halfway through that build process right now, but it was very late. They only got that car about 13 days ago. It was shipped to Atlanta. They had to take it back to their base, and then a 5-day road trip out here to California. So a lot of work by the Bimmer World squad to be here this weekend.
This is another new team to the championship. US Racetronics, a lot of experience in Lamborghini Super Trofeo. We've seen them from time to time. I think they ran the California 8 Hours a few years ago. part of Intercontinental GT Challenge at the time, but the young man, Stephen AGHAKANI, who qualified in Q1, just turned 19 years old. He's been driving GT3 cars since he was 12 or 13.
I know, just ridiculous.
Lots of Super Trofeo experience, and this is a gentleman with a lot of Lamborghini experience, and in recent years, well, not now, we were looking at the car I was speaking about, but Loris Spinelli, maybe not a huge name in the States, but he's been very quick in Europe and Super Trofeo as well as International GT Open, Italian GTs, and championships like that. We look at Colin Brown, Riley Motorsports now the team for the CrowdStrike racing operation.
Yeah, and curious to see if Colin really get down to some lap times here. It looks like they were waiting for the track to dry a little bit, but now the pressure is really on not to make that crucial error as you're pushing here. He's deep in the order right now, needs to pull it up a little bit.
Caldarelli just improved. ALTO went quicker with an overall best third sector. He jumps up to second place, but let's keep an eye here on Colin Brown coming across the line. 3.5 minutes left in this qualifying session. Here he comes. Does Colin improve at all? He does not. Currently in 10th. And Loris Spinelli, we were just talking about him in another Mercedes AMG, goes to the top of the charts with a purple middle sector, 148.8, a full 0.274 seconds clear, just over 2/10 clear of second place. That is a whale of a lap.
That is awesome. I was watching him go through the carousel. I thought, boy, is he pushing. He's got a ton of grip there as well. The car is really working well, and that certainly transitioned into a really smart lap time as well. So that's pretty cool stuff.
Nick WITTMER driving the ST Racing BMW here. Windshield wipers still flashing, so I don't know if that's just some of the spray or if the rain has resumed to some degree, but great to see Nick get this opportunity. He's been running around the world with ST Racing over the last few seasons. We've seen him some in Pirelli GT4 America.
Great young talent. Great to see him get this opportunity with this team that is on the rise. Super nice young man. A racing family.
Oh, yeah.
All of the boys are deep into the pro racing ranks.
Carl, Kuno, and KURTZ, I think, the four brothers, all of them have some racing experience. Not sure why Nick didn't get the name with a K first letter like all the other brothers.
Maybe they just kicked him instead.
Well, whatever it is, it's working. He's been really, really strong in Pirelli GT4 America. Had a couple of races last year filling in for one of the ST Racing drivers, and always is on the pace. This is the car that Loris Spinelli went to the top of the charts with.
I think he's setting up for a last lap fly here. I don't think he was at total pace there coming through that final corner, but now he's trying to gap the field, I think, a little bit. See if he can get this last lap flyer in. This will be his last opportunity.
Lap time's down under 2 minutes, giving you an
looks
idea.
Beautifully balanced, Ryan, but he runs a little bit wide. Tried to get too greedy there. That's going to cost him. So he's going to have to sit on that time. This will not be a fast lap for Spinelli.
Meanwhile, Caldarelli just went personal best in Sector 1. Jan Heijlen, overall best Sector 1, personal best Sector 2. So the 5th placed Porsche might be the one to watch. Ryan Dial just jumped to 7th in the DXDT Racing Mercedes. A number of fast laps coming in late as the track starts to dry out.
To see how Heijlen can finish off this lap. Boy, would he surprise everyone if he could suddenly jump up there with that Porsche. You talked about it being strong in these conditions. Spinelli here just tried to stay out of everyone's way, did the right thing there. Here's Caldarelli, currently second. Can he dig deep and find a few tenths here in this Lamborghini?
Well, he did in the second sector, Calvin. He had a personal best first, went purple Sector 2, letting that car drift all the way out to the curbing on the exit of turn 10. Hard on the brakes now for the hairpin at the end of the lap. Look at that, he's trending the right direction. Keep an eye on it. The time he needs to beat a 148.8 by 3. Andrea Caldarelli, the reigning champion, gunning for pole. Third sector, not good enough.
Wow, maybe you're just too careful there. You don't want to throw it all away. He would have seen the predictive on his dash, knowing that it was a potential pole lap, and maybe just too careful there coming through the final corner.
But he crossed the line with 2 seconds to spare.
Cool.
He's got one more flyer still to go. Mario FARNBACHER, the first driver to take the checkered flag. He is provisionally 4th. A number of the drivers just bailing. They feel like they've got what they can get, included amongst them the provisional pole man, Loris Spinelli, heads to the pit lane. So we pick up Conrad Grunwald, 9th place overall for AF Corsa. And the best placed AM class entry. Let's see, can he improve his starting spot? He does have a better lap, but it doesn't change the order. 9th quickest as he takes the checker.
Yeah, and Caldarelli's first sector was not his personal best. So I'm not sure if he's got enough in the tank there to pull one out of the bag.
We're on board with him now. Let's watch and listen. Sounds like he's still on it.
Yeah, it does. Racetrack is really getting dry now. But he's not. He's down. Nearly half a second down. This is not going to be enough for the pole. Spinelli looks like he should hang on to this.
Well, you talked about it right as this session began, Calvin. There will reach a point where there's not enough moisture on the track for the wet tires to work to their maximum, and we might be there.
Yeah, if this was the race, they'd be actually searching for the wet weather, the puddles, to really try and cool these tires down.
Not seeing any sector times from any of the cars out there to indicate that anyone has a lap going that could threaten Loris Spinelli for the pole. So how about it? His debut race in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Effectively the team's full season debut, and they'll start race 2 from the pole.
And I can't recall, but Pepper was in the 48s, wasn't he? So to put that in perspective, a lot wetter racetrack. I mean, his performance there was spectacular. The lap times he's able to run in those conditions in qualifying session 1. But I think we got to that point there. I mean, obviously Caldarelli was pushing. He knew he just didn't have enough of the pole position on that previous lap. Pushed hard and was about 6/10 slower on that final lap in. So that racetrack is definitely transitioning towards more of a slick tire for these conditions.
We do have a mixed up grid, and that's what we love about race 2 of the weekend. 2 pros at the top of the order, Spinelli and Caldarelli, separated by just about 1/10 of a second. But Mario Farnbacher on the class pole in Pro-Am. And on down the line you go. Conrad Grunwald, he loves these conditions. His drifting background coming to the fore, putting the AF Corsa AM class car on class pole. They'll start 11th overall.
Yeah, and ahead of some big names there, Orbel and Foley, Brian Sellers. I mean, there's going to be some teams scratching their heads a little bit. Just missed it, I would imagine, maybe the tire pressures or whatever for these conditions. I'm not sure anyone gambled on slicks, and if anyone's at towards the bottom of those charts, but it was certainly too wet to embrace slicks early in the session. But if you were to sit still and wait for the track to dry, but big gamble to do that, and I don't think anyone did it.
Those are the final results. Final 5 cars have some work to do come race day. Well, Loris Spinelli, impressive to put the US Racetronics car on pole, and Amanda's got his teammate Stephen AGHAKANI.
Oh, and it was claps all around for the team here when they found out they will be on pole for race 2 here in Sonoma, presented by CrowdStrike. And Stephen, did you think that you guys would find success this soon here, kicking off this new season?
It was definitely a little bit rough for free practice. You know, with all the changing conditions, we had a bunch of car issues. But, you know, the team always pulls through. I have to thank everyone, you know, all the sponsors, SADA Systems, everyone, the US Racetronics team, you know, everyone did an outstanding job getting the car put back together. And now here we are, as you can see. Quali 1 was a little bit more rough because it was a little bit more dry, or excuse me, a little more wet, actually. We had a little bit more of a dry setup on the car, actually, but here it is in Quali 2, and here we are sitting on top, number 1, which is the spot where we should be sitting. So huge thank you to the team. Amazing drive by co-driver Loris Spinelli. And so we're going to start the first race in P4 and just see how it goes from there.
What are you going to say to Loris when you speak to him?
I'm sorry?
What are you going to say to Loris when you speak to him?
In a very broken Italian accent, like we always mess with him because he's an Italian driver. Just tell him a really good job. And I mean, it was by far an amazing drive by him. I think we took P1 by, I think it was 0.007 of a second. So, you know, it just really goes to show how tight the competition is here, but we're really happy to be out here.
Congratulations to the US Racetronics team. And Stephen, for a young man, he has a lot of experience all across the world. There he is with his father. Proud papa for sure.
Yeah, that was a great quali session for both. For Stephen to be qualifying up there in the top 5, for his teammate, boy, did he put it all on the line.
Speaking of putting it on the line, Jordan Pepper in Q1. He was the highlight reel, wasn't he?
That was spectacular, just to have that confidence and belief in the race car that can do those sort of things in those conditions. It was really, really wet when he ventured out there on those opening laps, and he was just in a different stratosphere lap time-wise.
One of the newcomers to the championship, the Triarci Competizione team. Onofrio Triarci, so impressive in that qualifying session to get on the AM class pole. Ashton Harrison, Mario Farnbacher showing the pace of this new Evo kit for the NSX. Conrad Grunwald on the M-Class pole. Great performance in Q2. Few issues for the TR3 Lamborghini, but they got it back on track and no damage to that car. That was qualifying. It was a lot of fun. We look forward to seeing you for the race this afternoon.